We are back, or at least I am back, with our Week 15 reactions. Isaiah will be back later for the predictions this week, and of course we'll be back next week for the Week 16 reactions. And we had a lot of big games, a special Josh Allen performance, a couple big injuries in that Lions game. Patrick Mahomes went down with an injury. But the first story I want to address is Josh Allen cementing himself as the clear-cut MVP winner this season. Now, there will be some Lamar Jackson stands out there, and I'm also a Lamar Jackson guy. Like, he's got the better numbers. He's more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, more rushing yards. Yes, Josh Allen beats him in rushing touchdowns, but he's just getting them on the 1 yard line. That argument is there, but it is clear after watching Josh Allen take down the Lions, take down the Chiefs, put up the performance he did last week against the Rams, that he is the MVP favorite. When you're comparing the two in big games this year, Josh Allen has shown up. Just over the last 5 weeks, he took down the Chiefs, who were the number 1 team in the AFC. The Chiefs' only loss this season against the Rams just 2 weeks ago. His defense was trying to lose the game, but play in and play out, he came back and had 6 total touchdown contributions, threw for over 300 plus yards, and kept them in the game. This week, against the number 1 team in the NFC, while his defense still gave up 40 plus points to the Lions. He led his offense to a victory, rolled out, had his stereotypical throws deep down the field to whether it be Ty Davis or he had one to Keon Coleman. He had big runs when he needed to have big runs, and he executed at a high level. Against the best teams this year, Josh Allen has showed up. Then on the Lamar Jackson side of things, while some of these losses can maybe be attributed to Justin Tucker, he hasn't played his best in the biggest moments. Against the Steelers, he had a sub 50% completion percentage. Against the Browns, while he didn't necessarily play bad, I would still say he got outplayed by Jameis Winston. And against the Eagles, there were some throws he missed that game where if he just leads them further down the field, you don't even need to rely on Justin Tucker. And they're not anything close to what Josh Allen has done against the best team in the AFC and the best team now in the NFC. Now, Ravens fans may also point to earlier in the season when the Ravens actually took down the Bills, but I don't think that matters as much when it comes to their MVP discussion. When we have more information, we've seen Josh Allen rebound from his bad game against the Ravens, bad game against the Texans, and against 2 teams that are the top of their respective conferences. He has some of the best quarterback performances ever. And maybe if Justin Tucker made those kicks, Lamar Jackson's more in the thick of things, with him being atop the AFC North and the Bills being atop the AFC East. But I think after we see Josh Allen take down the Lions, take down the Chiefs recently, and now looking to just beat the Patriots twice and Jets once over the last 3 games, they're going to end the season with 3 losses. If the Chiefs falter because of Patrick Mahomes' injury, they may be the 1 seed in the AFC, and even with how great Lamar Jackson has played, he doesn't deserve it over Josh Allen. I think with Lamar Jackson, you more get into the discussion of whether or not he should win Offensive Player of the Year over Saquon Barkley, who has now had not the best games compared to the rest of the season over the last 2 weeks, may not break Eric Dickerson's record, and Lamar Jackson, phenomenal statistical year. So that's the MVP discussion. Now, when it comes to the Bills in totality, what they will do over the course of the rest of the season, I think they are clear-cut best team in the NFL right now in the playoffs. Would you take them against the Chiefs on the road? I probably wouldn't, but when it just comes down to team construction, they're better after moving off of Stephon Diggs in the offseason, and it has allowed Josh Allen to heavily target Keon Coleman one game, throw it to the tight ends, have Ty Johnson be the leading receiver, opens up the ability for James Cook and Josh Allen to be focal points and dominant pieces in the run game where they don't have to force 10 targets a game to Stephon Diggs. So that clearly benefited them. And in the playoffs, Chiefs on the road could be tough, but this is the hottest team in the NFL right now. I think they're playing like the best team. Their defense is a question mark. Their defense is the reason they lost to the Rams. It's the reason the Lions were even in the game with them this past week. But right now, Josh Allen's the MVP. I think they can beat anyone in the playoffs, even on the road against the Chiefs with how Josh Allen was playing, but we will have to wait and see. Now, there was another team who played in this game. That team was the Detroit Lions. And while fans will point to all of the injuries they have suffered as the reason the Lions lost this game, and they'll cry about it if the Lions lose in the playoffs and cite it as injuries are the reason their season was ruined. It's the reason the best season in franchise history came to a screeching halt. And while to a large extent that may be true, this team still has a great ability to win football games with just how good their offense is. They have the number one scoring offense in the NFL. They have one of the best passing attacks in the NFL. They have one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. They have the ability, with the talent they have on offense, to outplay a poor performance from their defense. But they can't let the psychological factor of a lot of defensive injuries affect their decision making too much, because that is what happened in this Bills game. They're down by 10 points in the fourth quarter with 12 minutes left. They still have 3 timeouts in their pocket, and Dan Campbell decides to kick an onside kick just to have it be returned back to their own 5-yard line, just for Josh Allen to throw a touchdown one play later. If that doesn't happen and they force a punt, or even if the Bills take time off the clock and just go down and kick a field goal, then maybe their offense brings it within 1 score and it is a 6-point game. That gives you a better chance at winning than having the Bills score a touchdown. You need to match that immediately, and then you have to get another stop and try and score again. So that was a terrible decision. I think we've seen at points this year Dan Campbell has a tendency to do that in some moments where it doesn't make sense. I'm all for being aggressive. Now that you have a razor thin margin of error, you can't put your defense in positions where they don't have any chance of stopping the opposing offense. You need to protect them at all costs, and you need to get the ball back to the offense. This offense is so good. If the defense can get 1 or 2 stops, you can score 32 points and win the football game. I don't think I would have the Lions as the best team in the NFC, because at the end of the day, their defense is just depleted by injuries. The Eagles are playing at an extremely high level. The Vikings are playing at a very high level. You got teams like the Packers and Buccaneers. Any of those teams could knock them off. But with how good their offense is, they could also win those games. And I think that is important to take into account. And the Lions need to get a little bit more conservative and protect their defense, in my opinion. Now, we briefly mentioned the Eagles. Let's talk about their matchup against the Steelers. And first, I want to talk about the Steelers. This game shows us and gives us more information to complete the picture of what Russell Wilson is at this point in his career. We've seen him have a lot of bright spots this year. He's pushed the ball down the field, but if he doesn't have an elite receiving threat, he's not much of a factor in the game plan. It is hard for the Steelers to affect teams in the passing attack. With George Pickens not on the field, we saw Russell Wilson struggle to pass the ball around the field. He's not the athlete he was earlier in his career, so he's not going to offer that same rushing threat for you. And against this Eagles defense, with Najee Harris not being overly productive, Jaylen Warren not really being able to get things going, it was never going to be a good game for this Steelers offense. So when it comes to the Steelers' playoff hopes, over their last 3 games, they have to take on the Chiefs, Ravens, last game against the Bengals, which they should win because of how bad that Bengals defense is, but with how good that offense is, you never know. You kind of need George Pickens in order to get this offense going. He is maybe the biggest part of this offense, with his ability to threaten teams down the field and stretch the field out so that they can rely more on the play action and throwing underneath to their tight ends, getting the other receivers open. Steelers, big question mark. This loss opens them up to losing the division, depending on what they do, like I said, against the Chiefs and Ravens. But very dangerous team. TJ Watt also got banged up in this one. I think they're going to struggle down the stretch, and I don't know if they'll carry enough momentum into the playoffs to have some big run. That's just me. I'm sure Steelers fans will think otherwise, and if you're watching this, you can let me know what you think about that. On the Eagles side of things, I'm not too happy. A poor Saquon performance ruined one of my fantasy teams. I'm now relying on Monday Night Football for DJ Moore and Caleb Williams to combine for 50 points for me to win the game. Don't know if that'll happen, but if you're a fan of this team or looking at how this team can do in the playoffs, I think you're ecstatic after this game. Their passing attack has not really been a focal point this year. Their passing yards per game is near the bottom of the NFL. They've really been relying on Saquon Barkley. Turmoil earlier this week with A.J. Brown. And when you have a game where against a very solid defense, both your number 1 receivers go for over 100 yards, each have a touchdown catch, and your quarterback Jalen Hurts has his best passing game all year, where he spread the ball around the field and got the ball out on time, you're happy, because this proves that if your team has a good defensive performance, if the other team forces you to pass the ball, or Saquon is stifled a little bit, or misses time during the game due to an injury, you have an ability to pass out of it and use your other elite weapons. So I think really encouraging for the Eagles, more so than if Saquon had a 200-yard rushing game with 3 touchdowns and Jalen Hurts only had 100 passing yards. Great game for the Eagles. I think they're now the best team in the NFC because they're not dealing with injuries like the Lions are. And it'll be interesting to see how the final seedings play out. Will they get the 1 seed? Will the Vikings somehow get the 1 seed? Will the Lions still be able to hang on to it? Third topic to cover today, the Patrick Mahomes injury. If you own him in fantasy, you're devastated with the playoffs happening right now. And it is really interesting because the Bills also won this week. So if the Chiefs were to lose 2 of their last 3 games and the Bills go undefeated over their last 3 games, they're going to lose the 1 seed because the Bills have that head-to-head tiebreaker. Will they force him to play this week against the Texans because of that? Who knows? I tend to think that they should play Carson Wentz because they're playing a Texans team that has 2 edge rushers that are combined for 23 sacks on the season. We know the Texans have an elite pass rush. They'd be playing against a diminished athletically Patrick Mahomes. I don't think you want to put him at risk there. Carson Wentz, I like to think he's a better backup in the NFL. We've seen him have high points during his career. He completed 2 passes last week, although that doesn't mean much. And I think you want to find out what you have with Carson Wentz. Does he have the ability, if Patrick Mahomes sustained a more significant injury, to step in for you, lead the team down the field, still generate yards, still generate offense, and help you win football games in some of the biggest moments? I think that's something you need to find out now, and I think it makes sense to protect Patrick Mahomes from himself a little bit, make him sit this week, and allow Carson Wentz to get in the game and get some real game time action for you. Now, side note, when it comes to Carson Wentz potentially starting as a backup for the Chiefs, what kind of storyline that would be to have the way his career was derailed and sort of ended as a starter earlier in his career when he's having an MVP-like season for the Eagles, then gets hurt. Nick Foles, his backup, steps in, wins the Super Bowl to now be on the best team in the NFL later in his career as a backup to the best quarterback in the NFL, trying to challenge Tom Brady for GOAT status, and he steps in, has a couple big games for them, helping them make that three-peat a reality. Would be an amazing storyline. Last topic I have for the games I want to talk about this week, the Buccaneers and the Chargers. I've kind of been saying it all season long, even when the Chargers have been fully healthy on the offensive side of the ball. They just don't have enough talent. Quentin Johnston, if he was your 3rd option, I think you'd be really excited. Even more excited if he was your 5th option. But he's functioning as your number 1 option right now. And maybe he gets there later in his career. But he's just not that good yet. Not that good of a route runner. Not that good at the catch point. And he really relies solely on his athleticism. So when you have him to throw to, a banged up Lad McConkey, stone smart as your tight end, and your starting running back is done, it is going to be hard to hang with a Buccaneers team that is top 4 in the NFL in scoring offense. So in the future of this Jim Harbaugh tenure with the Chargers, they'll have more talent and they'll be able to better compete with the Chiefs, but it's just not their year yet. They don't have enough talent. Justin Herbert doesn't have enough options to throw to, which leads me now to the Buccaneers, who have all the weapons they need to get things done. I mentioned number 4 scoring offense in the NFL, high up there in passing yards per game. I think I want to say they're hanging around 6. Mike Evans had an absolutely massive game. He's going to hit 1,000 yards again. They're once again the kings of the NFC South, although that's not exactly hard to do. Bucky Irving looking like one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's getting things done at a high level. Cade Otton is a very good option as a tight end. And when it comes to this Buccaneers team, I'd be shocked if the Falcons are able to catch them. And if you're the 5 seed, nobody wants to play this team in the playoffs. They got it done last year. They beat the Eagles, who faltered during the end of the year and lost their rights to the division title. And I think the same thing could happen again with whoever falls there, whether it be the Lions losing to the Vikings, allowing the Vikings to win the NFC North, whether it be the Packers who have to play them because they're able to squeeze up there towards the end of the season, depending on how things play out, whether it be the Lions. This Buccaneers team has a phenomenal phenomenal interior defensive line. When fully healthy, their run defense is very good against a team like the Lions that would cause Jahmyr Gibbs to struggle. Then they'd have to be very reliant on their pass game. And we see this Buccaneers team has the ability to spread the ball out all around the field, which would take advantage of a depleted Lions secondary. Nobody wants to play this Buccaneers team in the wildcard round. I think I would be likely to pick them, and it feels like an upset would be imminent once again. Those were all the topics I really wanted to cover. I touched on Lamar Jackson a little bit. I don't think even if it's 5 touchdowns, it was against the Giants. Are they even an NFL team at this point? I mean, they're on their Tim Boyle starting at quarterback. Dexter Lawrence not on the field. Brian Burns, he's good, but they don't got much else. The run game atrocious. I don't know. I don't have anything I don't think that game does anything for Lamar Jackson in his MVP case. There was the clock mismanagement at the end of the game with the Commanders, or mistake by the refs in the Commanders Titans. Bengals got to win. Will Levis, bad game again. Shocker. Anyway, Week 15 reactions. Let me know if you want any of my thoughts on any other games I did not cover down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, use code Thicc on Underdog. Gives you bonus cash up to $1,000. Helps out our channel, and I'll see you in the next one.